Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm assuming you're watching this as soon as it drops because I know you all just hang out and wait with bated breath for every new piece of content that I put out, right? We're dusting off an old concept today. Almost 3.5 years ago, I think it was April of 2017, was the last time I did one of these things under the Press Pause banner. And when I conceived of Press Pause, it was going to be the show where I did like little miniature essays or opinion pieces, little soapbox moments maybe even, that either weren't long enough to go on the podcast, the OrNERDnary Podcast, available every Saturday on PolyNerdic.com, SoundCloud, CastBox, and Blueberry. We're working on getting it elsewhere, but that's where you can find it for now. Again, that is the OrNERDnary Podcast, PolyNerdic.com, Saturday morning, 7 a.m., 99% of the time. And I just kind of let the concept die. I did, I think, a whole 2 episodes, a 0 episode, and then the first official episode, and then I never got back to it. I was using the Xbox editing suite to do it and stuff like that. It was as terrible as you expect my work from 2017 to be. Not to say that we've gone leaps and bounds beyond that, but there is a definite change in quality. I excuse me, I think. Let me take a drink. I was eating almonds beforehand. So, I thought, we talked about on the podcast this past week that, Xbox did their big showcase on Thursday. And most of us on the podcast agreed it was an underwhelming showcase. Nothing really wowed or surprised. There weren't a lot of new announcements. I think the thing that stood out the most to me was Avowed and then Fable. Halo Infinite is a known thing. We know it's coming. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, the sequel to that, is coming. We know Hellblade 2 is on its way. It looks phenomenal, at least based on the teaser stuff we've seen. Nothing really just popped though. For me personally, Avowed was it. And I know we're years away from seeing that game come out, but I love the idea of another Skyrim style game made by Obsidian, no less. But in the podcast, we briefly touched on something, and it kind of got glossed over, it kind of got ignored, and I wanted to revisit it here by myself so I could fully explain what I was trying to get at on the podcast. And I suggest you listen to it. Audio quality, I will advise you, is not great on the podcast. We had some sound balance issues that I could not figure out how to fix, where two of the 3 of us sound really loud and blown out, while the other one sounds normal. I don't know why Sean and I were so loud sounding. I don't know if I was talking louder because I had 2 earbuds in. Sean's just loud. I love him, but that's just who he is. He knows that. He works on it. We'll try again this coming week to have a less blown out audio on the podcast, but I wanted to talk about this tweet right here. On June 23rd, Mike Bithell of Mike Bithell Games said that the greatest trick the video game industry has ever played was convincing people to talk about engine tech rather than art direction whenever a game's looks come up in conversation. I'm going to leave that up for a second. I agree wholeheartedly with what Mike's saying here. And I'm calling him Mike like I know him, like he's my best friend. The dude's liked a couple of my tweets. So we're close like that, I'm joking. I agree with the concept here that he's laying forth. And it's because, it was brought up repeatedly on the internet, in the aftermath of the Xbox thing, because we saw the Halo Infinite footage and people weren't happy with it. In fact, it was said it looks terrible. What I see here when I look at this is a pretty damn good looking Halo game. Like, Does he look as good as Joel in The Last of Us Part 2? No. But nobody in Halo 4 looked as good as Joel in Last of Us 1. Art direction is a pivotal thing in games. Not everything will have the fidelity of The Last of Us Part 2. Even Ghost of Tsushima does not have the fidelity of Last of Us Part 2. The characters look really good in Last of Us Part 2. Like, photorealistic, looks like you're looking at real people, real environments. Ghost of Tsushima has really excellent, beautiful environments that look just a step off of real. And then it's been well documented that the lip sync's off, both with the English and the Japanese. Like, the Japanese is off from the English voice movement or lip movement, but the English is off from the English lip movement. There's lots of clipping in Ghost of Tsushima. I don't see people complaining about it. I'm not certainly complaining about it when my coat clips through my sword and I see the sword sticking out all funny. But yet here, we're looking at this fine piece of work here. It looks like a beautiful Halo game. Does it look next gen? Does it blow your mind? Not really. But to say it looks terrible is a stretch, as so many on the internet have said. It looks like the next step up in Halo, in this man's opinion. And there are issues here in this presentation. In a little bit, Master Chief will be riding an elevator, and if I'm still talking about it by the time we get there, there's some fog pop in. You know, it's not a flawless presentation at all. I'm trying to skip it forward to that. Here we go. We just got there, so let me go back to it. As the elevator goes up here in a second, boom, that fog popped in. That doesn't look great, right? But to say it looks bad is ridiculous. You know, what Mike Bithell was getting at is that everyone wants to talk about engine power and graphics and all that stuff, but I think a lot of people confuse graphics versus art direction. Like, I'm going to pull up a video here. Resolution will be a little crap because it's a Twitch update to YouTube. But, like, art direction, right? Art direction is what we're talking about. This is Carrion. And I apologize for there being two of me on the screen here. This is from my playthrough of Carrion. Would you say this game looks bad? Because I do know people that will say this game looks bad, because they think this aesthetic, this art direction, is bad graphics. I think this is a beautiful game. I think it is a beautiful looking game. But here we are, pixel art, side-scrolling, not photorealistic. Tons of fun. But would you say it's a bad looking game? I can't agree with you if you do. Like, I absolutely cannot agree with you if you think this is a bad looking game. Trying to get the video to the next bit here. What about Super Hot? Bad looking game in your opinion? When they made the conscious decision to have it be in this art style? White backgrounds, red enemies that shatter when you shoot them, time moves when you move. That is undeniably the art direction they chose. Does it stack up to The Last of Us Part 2? Fuck no. It does not. But would you say this is a bad looking game? I wouldn't. I don't know why I gave you time to answer. And again, mind you, this is a video, you know, there's video quality issues when you pull up YouTube stuff via Xbox. You know, you're not getting the highest quality cut of it. But I mean, the point's valid. I mean, I could go on and on. You know, I love Fire Pro. I think it's a phenomenal game. Does it look as good as the 2K games? Absolutely not. But I would not say it has, you know, the graphics are bad. It is an art direction decision. The art style of Fire Pro Wrestling is this. It's not trying to be something it isn't. Halo Infinite is not trying to be Last of Us. You know, if you look at the previous Last of Us game and you look at previous Halo games, they are not apples to apples. Art direction matters. People need, and I agree with, again, the tweet. I can't thank Mike Bithell enough for tweeting this, because people need to realize that art direction is a choice. It is a design choice. Now, you could complain about the fog popping in, stuff like that. You know, like that stuff is more understandable than saying that game looks bad. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to find Mike Bithell's John Wick game here for a second. This is Mike Bithell's John Wick Hex. Does it look like Last of Us 2? Is that the benchmark that we're going to compare everything to? If things don't look like Last of Us 2, they have bad graphics? We're just going to ignore the art direction and design and go for, if it doesn't look like Last of Us 2, it's bad? Because it's not. You know what I mean? Like, you could not like the art style. You can absolutely not like a game's art style, but it is not the same thing as it having bad graphics. It is not the same thing as it looking terrible. And that's the point I was trying to make in the podcast, and I don't think it came across. I don't think the discussion of Mike Bithell's tweet got to where I wanted it to get. Like, I don't think Halo Infinite, the presentation we saw of it, is going to move people to buy an Xbox that weren't already planning on buying an Xbox. I don't think that presentation was for anyone really more than Halo fans. Like, people that wanted Halo to return to what it was. My buddy Sean brought up Spartan Locke and the BS of the story, as he put it, because I haven't played a Halo since Halo 3. But I don't know who Spartan Locke is. I don't know what the story with Locke is. I just know a lot of fans of Halo weren't happy with it. And from what I understand, Halo Infinite is trying to win those fans back. You know, bring them back to the fold. Show them that Halo is Halo of old again, from what I understand. Granted, none of us have played it. We're all basing it on what we saw. And we're not supposed to judge things without seeing them. But that's what we're all doing. We're all looking at this thing, with the exception of the lucky few in the game's press that have gotten to play some of the things that we've seen, you know. And I don't even know if anyone's even played Halo Infinite yet. My point is sight, seen, hands off the controller, only what we've seen on presentations. I thought that it was worth talking about the graphics versus game design, or art direction. Graphics versus art direction, excuse me. I don't think Halo Infinite looks bad. There's some issues with it. It's not perfect. But I think it is what it's supposed to be. It is a Halo game. It looks like a Halo game to me. It doesn't look like Last of Us or Uncharted. It never looked like Last of Us or Uncharted. I could see the complaint made if Last of Us 2 looks like Halo Infinite, after Last of Us 1 looked so good. then you have like a what the hell kind of argument to make. But I think Mike Bithell's words are absolutely 100% apt. That we need to stop focusing so much on engine tech and graphic fidelity, stuff like that, and take each game for what they are. You know, I would not compare John Wick Hex to Last of Us Part 2. I would not compare Carrion to Ghost of Tsushima. I would not compare Superhot to Crosscode. You know, like, we need to let go of that argument. That argument is just loaded with fallacy. And that's what I wanted to get at here. I didn't get a chance to express that during the podcast because, you know, we were going through so many different topics, and there was 3 of us talking, and I just wanted to come circle back around to that. So listen to the podcast, listen to Jen, Sean, and I as we talk about a variety of things, and then come back to this and see if you understand what I'm saying. I think this is the good format for that. This is like a good addendum to the podcast, or when I come across a thing that I want to soapbox about but don't want to put it on the podcast by itself. And we'll probably talk about this video on the podcast. But I hope I made my point better than I did this past Saturday when I was trying to get around to this tweet, this quote from Mike Bithell, and it just kept becoming a conversation about how quote-unquote bad Halo Infinite looked. As I said on the podcast, if it wasn't going to be on Game Pass, I would probably not buy it. As it is going to be on Game Pass, I probably won't play it day one. I might play it day one or week one just to get some sort of content up because it's relevant. But if I weren't running a shitty YouTube channel and a half-assed podcast and a substandard website, I would probably ignore it for a good long while because I still haven't played Halo 4 and 5. I don't dislike Halo. I just have never been in love with it, you know. Thank you for watching this edition of Press Pause. We'll probably do these, as I said, again in the future when I have something that's not like a full vlog worthy or something that I just want to soapbox about for a little bit. Bounce it off of you, man. I think, art direction is important. I think there's a huge difference between art direction and graphics. And I think Halo Infinite is a prime example of it. Comparing it to Last of Us Part 2 is really an apples to oranges comparison. But the fanboys want a fanboy, and you're not gonna be able to stop it. It is what it is. I'll see you next time right here on the PolyNerdic channel on PolyNerdic.com. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a subreddit. We have a Discord. And if you're feeling generous, we have a Patreon and a coffee if you want to throw a couple bucks our way to make things better, to get me a better webcam, to get me some better lights, to get me a better monitor, better sound setup, whatever. Everything you donate will go towards that. I can promise you that. Because that is ultimately the goal here, is to get this to be a little more self-sufficient than it is. But as I said, we'll be back in the near future with content, video stuff, podcast, all the above. Thank you for taking time to watch this. I'll see you soon.